When Tyler does put his hand up to say, this isn't right, would we know they constantly get shot down for that? What do we tell our apprentices moving forward?
Yeah, so I think part of the reason why we did the TANZ team training program is because it's based on being part of a team. Our industry can't be considered in a silo type view. We are connected with the trades before, the trades after. And I think as Steve mentioned, and we're not promoting water stops, please, I actually said, you know, it's great, but we see those problems, and as Rob has pointed out as well, he's had pushback. So we have an industry wanting to do what's right, but in a construction industry that perhaps hasn't been educated really on what's right. So I think it really comes down more so to education, and hence that's why within the TANZ pathway, we've linked in with the construction associations, waterproof membrane associations, BCITO for training, so that it's a very collective approach. It's not isolated. So where we're getting pushback, that's where education for the councils, and also Steve's mentioned the designers. Designers are putting accurate details in, council are approving it. We as an industry aren't designers, we have to follow what we've been told to do. So that's where it's collective.
As a bigger picture type scenario, to create change within an industry or a trade, there's kind of three components. We have our customers, we have our industry, and we have our legislation. So it's a mix of all three to create change, okay? So we've got to have that desire in the industry to make those changes. We need support from MB to say, hey, these are the clear guidelines that we need. And then obviously the customers are there because they don't want to leak showers, but they don't have the knowledge. So that's where the partnership between industry and legislation really kicks in. And as you can tell from today, MB are really actively working with us on all this to try and get it to the right place. So that will create change as well.
I'd just like to add, I might be biased being in Tyler for 25 years, but tiles are probably the best material to use in regards to colour fast, hard wearing, hygienic. They conduct energy and release it. So it's actually a fantastic item for the construction industry. The only downside is there's been historically a lack of education. When I started in 1992, I wasn't educated. In fact, I was educated. I was educated for around about an hour, showing that that's the glue, there's your trowel it on and put your tiles up. And left my own devices. My first 14 showers leaked because I didn't realise that a waterproof membrane was required. But yet, that's how I entered the industry. So I learned from my mistakes, and we progressed and did very well. However, to have that education and that knowledge, and hence BCITO wasn't around then, so we were left to our own devices. And to a degree, one of the most common thoughts or most common comments, I've been tiling 30 years and never had a leak. And we hear that every single time, especially when we do the TANZ team training program. By morning tea, I hear all about the leaks, because everyone's had a problem and an issue, because that's just life. We're not perfect, we make mistakes. But what it really comes down to is, and as Stuart mentioned, the pushback. What we've got to do is educate the builder that he is now exposing that property to risk of failure by not doing it correctly, and that only comes down to education.
Yep.
My name is Jim from Refresh Renovations, so I'm part of the Master Builders Association as well, so this is an issue I'm coming up with all the time too. So you talk about educating the builders, and that is the problem, because I've got to manage the expectations of the homeowner as well as every single trade who comes in on that site. And one of the big problems and hassles I'm having is there needs to be some uniformity around the waterproofing and the tiling, what goes in the wall. Why? Because I'm constantly beating my head against the brick wall with either different tilers have different opinions, and who is right, who is wrong. And also, you're right about the designers. The designers, being uneducated, they go and they use a detail which happens to be most readily available and easiest detail to find to stick into the plans, and so then I'm constantly beating my head against a brick wall with the council because someone's come in and used a different method. So, you know, really from that perspective, I'm seeing it from all angles, and that really has to be fixed.
Yeah, it's that overlying theme that we need to get right. You know, what are the requirements? And it's so interesting that we have a discussion, and look, I do talk about water stops a lot because I see those as a point of failure. But it's just so interesting because when we do a house or a replan, or, you know, we don't get a choice whether we use a head flashing. You know, yeah. Why do we give people the choice of not putting in water stops where they need to go?
Because you can't get them. You can't. Those sort of accessories are very hard to find in New Zealand.
No, so they're basically in all tile shops now, so which is good. But just to add to Steve's point, AS 3740 2021 4.8.1 says that. Sorry, I've read it 100 times. Sorry, actually, I make a lie then because I said I read it 80 times. So it's between 80 and 100 times.
It's 81 now.
Yeah, exactly. So that comment says that water stops shall be installed. Shall means mandatory, and it says that they're an integral part of the waterproofing system. So it's pretty clear that they're mandatory, so they must be installed. So if a council inspector is inspecting and there's no water stop, then it's a fail. But as an integral part, if you had an integral part of anything, any type of system, and you deleted it, then you're exposing yourself to huge risk. So part of the problem is a lack of education.
It's a kind of chicken and egg thing too, because why aren't they more common? Because no one's using them. Once people are using them, they'll become more common.
But also, all the membrane companies need to use the same system. The membranes need to, at the end of the day, they all need to use the same products.
So the water stops are very much the same. Like a water stop is a pretty straightforward thing. You know, it just stops water from migrating out of the tile. Different systems will have different specifications of how much membrane needs to be on it. So those are the changes. But the water stops themselves are the same. But you're right, I think I get what you're saying, is that we need to be showing these details in all the manufacturers' details. They need to be compliant with the building code, don't they? You know, and that's what we need.
I think just to change the subject a little bit from water stops to leak control flanges. Again, the standard clearly indicates that a leak control flange must be fully exposed for the membrane to be applied to. And yet sometimes we see a screed or a base partly covering that flange, and sometimes sitting 20 mils up, which then means a apron can't be used, which then means the membrane application can't be warranted. So it's about that education. So for plumbers, we're educating plumbers in regards positioning of leak control flanges. For a membrane dry film thickness, we have a ultrasonic tester, and it gives us the exact dry film thickness of the membrane. And to acknowledge Jeff's point earlier today about, excuse me, about a council inspector not understanding the thickness of a membrane, you know, how can he tell? We've got education around how you can tell. Not to the exact micron, but generally speaking. And we've just tested one just last week, showing 800 microns with MAPE equity fence as it happens. And the inspectors came in and said, we don't see this thickness. But yet that's 800 microns, and that is now technically the accurate thickness. And yet they normally go in and they see blue on the wall, it's a tick. but it's about the thickness, the detailing, and so many other things. So that's what TANZ is about, educating the industry so as to protect it. You know, our main focus is dry, healthy homes that meet the building code requirements, and you know, we're off to a good start. If we don't educate, the same problems and issues will continue. So yeah, that's where we're
I
at.
think it comes back to Grant's thing with the inspectors as well. They don't know what good looks like. So that's what we need to get out. What does good look like?
Yeah. Any other questions? Because we're all, oh yep, so last question and then we're off lunch. Yep.
Just quickly, just some clarification around the water stops, going back to them. Is there a minimum, let's say, requirement for how many and where? I've seen detail around hobs, doors and walls. Are all three required, or?
So the hob is it's an option, so long as the glazing sits on the inside edge. If you're going to sit it on the centre, you need to have a water stop outside. Doorway, it's always been mandatory, and so is the fall point between the shower and a bathroom floor. In Australia, we've got two rates of fall, or fall outside, fall inside the shower. So you've got a secondary waste. So that's a little bit different. In New Zealand, we work on a flat floor outside. Once water migrates from the shower to the bathroom floor, has no means to get back in, we've got to stop it from migrating out. Went to one of 11 properties leaking, 15, sorry, hang on a second, 15 townhouses, 11 showers, 7 showers in 11 months started leaking, all high calcification through the grout outside the shower, no water stop, glazing channel, I actually seen that detail through to you too, glazing channel sitting on the bathroom floor and reliant on one bead of silicone. So within 11 months that bead had broken down enough, water migrating under the floor tiles. So yeah, water stops and walls where it comes in contact or close to a doorway, 200 mils, but saying that water can migrate, it doesn't get to 200 mils and say, okay guys, let's stop here, we've hit our 200 mils, it'll keep going.
Yeah, look, there's some really easy gains to be made, you know, it's not hard, we just need to tweak things a little bit. Like some of the workmanship you see in the membrane going down, it's beautiful, but it's just missing a couple of components, you know, and that's what we need to try and fix, and it's just, to do that we need everyone to sort of agree on what is required and have that clear understanding and we'll be there. You know?
All right, okay, thanks guys. Look, we're going to break for lunch now.